I'm making a Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile. This deck has been one of my favorite decks ever since Red Dragon Archfiend first showed up in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. And I realized it's been a while since I last made a deck profile, so I figured why not make an update with it. Overall, the deck is really fun. Go second, beat your opponent into the dirt. So starting with the tuners, I play 3 copies of Synchron Resonator. Synchron Resonator is a free summon if you control level. It used to be level 8. Nope. If you control a Synchron monster, you can just special summon from your hand, and then it leaves the field. You can add a Resonator monster as long. I think it has to be other than itself. Yeah, you can return one Resonator from your grave to your hand other than Synchron Resonator. Then I play 3 copies of Red Resonator. Red Resonator has the effect of when it's normal summoned, you can special summon level 4 or a lower monster from your hand. And then if Red Resonator is special summoned, then you can target one special monster on the field, gain life points equal to its attack points. Doesn't have to be special summoned or not. Then I play 3 copies of Crimson Resonator. Crimson Resonator has the effect of if you control no monsters, you can summon from your hand. And if the only other monster you control is exactly one Dark Dragon Synchro monster, which is not hard to do at all, you can then special summon up to 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except for Crimson Resonator. And then when you use this effect of Crimson Resonator, you cannot special summon for an extra deck except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. You can only do that is the condition you get locked into if you used either effect of Crimson Resonator, even if you just special summon it while you control the monsters. Then I play 3 copies of Red Gardena. Red Gardena just says if you control during your player's turn when your opponent activates a card effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, so that this turn none of your monsters can be destroyed by opponent's card effects. Then I play 3 copies of Witch of the Black Forest. This I play just because when it's sent from the field to the grave, then you can add a monster from your deck to your hand as long as it has 1500 or less defense, but you cannot activate cards or effects with the same name as that monster for the rest of the turn, which is perfectly fine because the monster you typically search does not technically activate. Then I play 2 copies of Red Sprinter. Red Sprinter has the effect of when it's normal or special summoned while you control no monsters or no other monsters, then you special summon level 3 or lower Fiend type tuner monster from your hand or graveyard. You only use that effect of Red Sprinter once per turn. Then I play 3 copies of Wandering King Wildwind. This is the monster I typically search with Witch of the Black Forest. Because its first effect is if you control a Fiend tuner with 1500 less attacking, especially from your hand, which is not technically an activation. It's kind of like a Cyber Dragon effect, where as long as conditions are met, you can just special summon it for free. But its effect is you can banish from your graveyard other than the turn it was sent there to then search for a Resonator, or it has to be a Fiend tuner with 1500 or less attack. Let's see. You can search for that. You can only use each effect of Wandering King Wildwind once per turn. Also, you can only special summon Wandering King Wildwind that way once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Red Warg. If you normal summon a Resonator monster, you can summon Red Warg from your hand, but its attack and defense are halved, which is perfectly fine because typically if you're using Red Warg's effects, because you're going to make a Red Dragon Archfiend. Then to finish off the monsters, I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom Joy Spring just because it is still one of the best hand traps in the game. And that is it for the monster cards. Moving on to the spells. Play 1 copy of Scarlet Security just because it's a Harpy's Feather Duster if you control Red Dragon Archfiend. And I do also play Harpy's Feather Duster in this deck. It's just currently in another deck, so this deck normally plays 2 Harpy's Feather Dusters that way. Then I play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. If you get hand trapped, you can draw 2 cards, take control of opponent's monster to the end of the turn, or look at your opponent's hand, shuffle 1 card from it back to the deck. Typically, though, but you can only activate Triple Tactics Talent if your opponent activates a monster effect during your main phase. Then, since this is a Ghost second deck, I play 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More, just so you can break opponents' boards. This negates all their face-up monster effects, but they also don't take any damage for the rest of the turn. So if you're using this, you're just trying to break your opponent's board, while also setting up your ground. Then I play 3 copies of Resonator Call. This just lets you add 1 Resonator monster from your deck to your hand. And then, since this is still an OTK deck, I do play 3 copies of Regeki, just to destroy all your opponent's monsters. And then that is it for the spells. Moving on to the traps, I only play 3, and that is 3 copies of Infinite Permanence, just for another hand trap option. But that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, which is all Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. I play 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. Red Rising Dragon has the effect of when it's synchro summoned, you can target 1 Resonator in your graveyard and special summon it. But this card will lock you into only Dark Dragon Synchros from your extra deck, which is, again, it's perfectly fine because everything's a Dark Dragon Synchro. That has the other effect, you can banish it from your graveyard to then special summon 2 level 1 Resonators from your deck or from your graveyard. I think they have to be Resonators. Yep. And then I play the 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. This card just has the once per turn effect during the main phase 1. You can destroy all other face-up attack position monsters on the field. However, if you use this effect, you're only allowed to attack with Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. Then I play the 1 copy of the original Red Dragon Archfiend, just for nostalgia. But essentially, this card attacks a defense monster. It can destroy all defense monsters your opponent controls. And then during the end of the battle phase, this card will destroy all your monsters that did not battle. Which, if it didn't battle, includes itself. And then I play 3 copies of Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. This card is treated as a Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard. Then it has the once per turn effect of you can activate its effect to then destroy all other special summon effect monsters in play that have attack equal to or less than its own. Destroy them, and then your opponent takes 500 points of damage for each monster destroyed by its effect. The best part of this card is you can use that effect, get it to the grave, bring it back, and you can technically activate that effect again if you don't want to. Then I play 2 copies of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Abyss just has the effect of being a quick effect of you can target 1 face-up card your opponent controls to negate its effects to the end of the turn. So if your opponent were to do something like activate Red Eyes Fusion, you can chain Abyss and target that Red Eyes Fusion and negate its effects. Same for Fusion Destiny. And then its other ability is if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, then you can target 1 tuner in your graveyard and special summon defense. You can only use that effect, each effect of Abyss once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Bane has the effect of you can just tribute 1 monster, then target a Red Dragon Archfiend in your graveyard, special summon it. And then if it inflicts battle damage, then you can special summon 2 tuner monsters with the same level, 1 from deck and 1 from your graveyard in defense position. You can only use each effect of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane once per turn. Then I play the 1 copy of Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend has the effect of it must be synchro summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. You can only use each of its effects once per turn, and those effects are during the main phase 1. You destroy all other cards on the field. If your opponent activates a card or effect during the battle phase, you can negate that effect, and if you do, it gains 500 attack. Then I play the 1 copy of Red Nova Dragon. Red Nova Dragon has the effect of it gains 500 attack for each tuner monster in your graveyard. It cannot be destroyed by card effects, or by the effects of your opponent's spells, traps, or monster cards. And if a monster declares an attack, you can target that monster to then remove it. It'll banish itself to negate the attack, and then summon itself back during the end phase. And then I play 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. King Calamity has the effect of when it's synchro summoned, you can then negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls until the end of the turn. And then if it strikes a monster in battle, your opponent takes damage equal to that monster's original attack. And if this card is destroyed, you can target one level 8 or lower Dark Dragon Synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon that monster. So it's a 4,000 body that burns your opponent, and then if it dies, you bring back Red Dragon Archfiend. And then I play the 1 copy of Red Supernova Dragon. Supernova Dragon gains 500 attack for each tuner in your graveyard. Cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. Then once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, or when your opponent's monster applies an attack, you can activate its effect where it banishes itself and also banishes all cards your opponent controls. Then once per turn during next end phase after that effect was used, Red Supernova Dragon summons itself back. So Red Supernova Dragon is more of a control card that you want to make if you activate Dark Ruler no more. But that is it for my Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile. If you have any ideas how I can improve the deck, any decks I see you make, or decks you'd like to see face each other, feel free to comment those below. Thanks for watching.